Hello and welcome to this week's Blockchain Gaming News Roundup. With me, Jenny Jordan, and co-host John Jordan. It's Friday, the 30th of May. Okay, hello John, how are you?
Good. Yeah.
Good. Right, let's start with the sort of, maybe not the biggest gaming news of the week, you wouldn't say, but the biggest news by far and sort of related to Web3 gaming. Around OpenSea and its transition from beta to OpenSea's and kind of version 2. So
Yeah.
it took us through a little bit what that entails.
Yeah. So this, I mean, in and of itself, it's not like a massive change, but I guess the sort of the big thing lots of people are focused on is that this is sort of the next stage towards the launch of the OpenSea token, which has been sort of trailed for. I think they sort of did they even announce it late last year. I think I can't remember, but and obviously anyone who's been in the scene for a while is probably a bit over fixated that as part of that token launch, historic activity on OpenSea is going to be rewarded in some way. So obviously, there's a load of people who did millions of dollars of trading back in the sort of NFT boom days, who were just sort of like, "Oh, I'm going to get massive amounts of money," which they may or they may not. Obviously, we don't really know what the token, what's going to happen with that token. But and obviously for OpenSea, for people who were there back in the day, so it was 2018 when I started out, OpenSea wasn't the only NFT marketplace, but very quickly it became the one where everyone was trading, and it sort of became a you looked what was happening on OpenSea and you could see what was sort of going on in the entire sort of industry. So back then, um, Axie Infinity was running on Ethereum, so all the Axie activity was happening on OpenSea, and the games that were there, OpenSea was sort of the de facto place where people traded. So historically, it's had like a lot of sort of mind share in the NFT space and gaming space. Obviously, what happened then was it raised tons of money at a massive valuation, $13 billion at the peak was its valuation. Probably, I don't know, maybe it's still over $1 billion now. But it's had to go through a really big sort of process where it's sort of had to fight against Blur was the main sort of marketplace that came along, and all the traders moved over to Blur because Blur rewarded them for their trading volume with its own Blur token. It is sort of an interesting sort of thing though that Blur, people still use it, but it's sort of really gone away now. It's I'm sure the degen still use it, but it launched its own blockchain, and we don't talk about it anymore. People, a lot of the good things it has, OpenSea has sort of adopted, which is part of this OpenSea 2, which, as you say, is now moved from beta to. So previously, before sort of this week, if you've been using OpenSea for a while on your wallet, so if I went into OpenSea with my wallet that I'd been using since 2018, I would be like I would get access to the new UX and everything. But if you were a new user, you wouldn't. So they were sort of like testing it out a little bit, and so now that's live for everyone. I guess the thing that's got to getting people interested is that they have a new sort of points program. So it's like an XP program. So as well as obviously, historic NFT trading is going to be rewarded in some way. I think everyone gets a bit overcome with all these sort of airdrops, expecting thousands and thousands of dollars worth of tokens for what a value they've actually created. Anyway, so that's historic, and they've said there's also this XP system will also be rewarded with tokens as well. So obviously, it's a bit more interesting for people who got into the scene more recently. I won't go into the details; it is quite complex. But basically, they're doing like we've seen generally with crypto projects. It's not social farming. There is a bit of that in there, but there's sort of every day there's a bunch of tasks. So I had a quick look at it yesterday. One of them was create a gallery. So a gallery is just you basically when people look at your profile, you choose sort of your favorite NFTs or however you want to do it, but you sort of create this is the sort of my gallery, my collection, and you got points for doing that. And then the next one down was trade sort of swap $5 worth of tokens on Solana. So one of the big things now, which is part of the OpenSea 2 going live, and really the big push they've had when they were very much, as I said, like a Ethereum NFT trading marketplace. They now support 19 different blockchains, so that's it's quite a lot, including Solana. Obviously, there were a whole bunch of Solana when Solana got big. things like Magic Eden became like the sort of NFT trading marketplace for Solana stuff. But now pretty much everyone does everything. So Magic Eden does all the blockchains, and I mean OpenSea does more. So it even does like a Ronin and a whole bunch of other sort of blockchains. But the other big thing they brought in is now, say, token trading. So as well as NFTs, you can now trade tokens, like swap tokens, like you would on Uniswap. So they're trying to become like a sort of the place where you go in crypto to do anything. It's probably not, if you were just really trading tokens, you might go to, there's reasons why you might go to Uniswap, I suppose, or some of the other sort of specific chain things for sort of meme coins or something. But they're trying to sort of build out that, so you just come to OpenSea. So I guess they're being a bit more mass market, which is I guess what they've always been. So anyway, they're going to be rolling this program on, and every 24 hours they reset these. They call them the whole thing's called Voyages. So you sort of reset these different voyages that you do, and it's just I think it's trying to encourage people to sort of check out the features that you may not have realized you can do on OpenSea. So I've never traded a token on OpenSea because I would do that. I'm just sort of used to using other sort of dApps. But anyway, they're trying to do all that, and then that will feed in. So you basically build up your XP points, there'll be a leaderboard, blah blah blah. But there's still they've said the token's coming, but they're quite being quite careful about how they launch it. And I think they just realise that with all token launches, there's a massive propensity for it to go horribly wrong. And you just know there's going to be a whole bunch of big NFT traders who are going to be really annoyed that they didn't get like $1 million worth because they traded $100 million worth. You just know there's going to be that sort of level of I deserve more.
What would be, I was going to get to that, but what would be the incentive to sort of hold your tokens, such as an OpenSea token, rather than just sell straight away and see it kind of completely?
Yeah, I mean that's the wider that's the sort of the wider question about crypto, isn't it? As I said previously before, it sort of not at the moment anyway. It does sort of make sense to. The only reason you would obviously keep a token is you think it's going to go up. And most tokens when they're released, certainly something as wide as this, and a lot of wallets are going to get maybe some level of tokens. So a lot of those people are just going to sell because it's just, if I've got $100, why would I not want those $100? And in fact, from a tax point of view, they always tell you because if you get a token airdrop, that counts as income, so you should sell it straight away to save the 30% or whatever you need for. But that's another question. But people do expect that when the token price will basically go down. But we don't know any details of how they're going to sort of do the airdrop. So I imagine we see the sort of best practice now is you allow people. You say, okay, Jenny, you've got 100 tokens, but if you choose to take them all now, you only get 50 tokens. And if you choose to stake them in a year's time, you'll get 200 tokens. So there's sort of ways in which you can sort of engage people into a wider ecosystem play where you're just going to give them more, and we just don't know. There's lots of different ways of doing that. But they clearly are. Yeah, they clearly are worried that there could be a massive backlash, and I think they said something like, this isn't a token airdrop, this is the token airdrop, because just OpenSea still has. It's a bit. I mean, back in the day when Uniswap did its first, it was sort of the first one to do that, where they gave. I mean, anyone who'd used it, I think, got about $4,000 worth. So there's all these people in the Philippines and stuff. I remember famously there was a school computer class, and they'd all had to use Uniswap to swap their tokens, and they all got all this money. It's maybe not quite at that level, but there will be a lot of people getting some level of value. So I think they are very, very careful about it. But it's good to see. I mean, I haven't spoken to them for a while, but I sort of knew the original founders of OpenSea back in the day. Had Alex on the podcast a long time ago now, and sort of no Devon. So it's sort of nice. They've taken a lot of flack. They've had a lot of people sort of kicking them, and I think it's good for the whole industry that they've come back and hopefully are going to because you need. I think you just need some of these sort of serious grown-up companies that have gone through a lot of sort of bad times and have really thought about, what are we doing what we're doing in crypto, and so many companies are sort of, and I would say Blast did some cool stuff when it came to sort of trading NFTs. They brought some features to the fore that OpenSea was sort of struggling a little bit at that time, but but let's say the fact no one really talks about Blur anymore. They were very crypto. They sort of made their money, did a big boom, quite interesting, but didn't sustain. And obviously, the thing to go mainstream, you want companies that are a bit more sort of thoughtful about what they're doing and more long term. So
yeah, and you'd say compared to a lot of projects that build that hype ahead of a token launch and then quickly sort of sink, OpenSea has proven themselves. So even if there aren't any obvious utility sort of reasons to hold the token, just the fact that OpenSea, you can trust that they're going to be around in a year to 5 years time.
And I have to say, I mean, I don't buy a lot of NFTs at the moment, because there's not the sort of products I like. But when I have used OpenSea recently, I did buy something, and they did have. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's like everyone's using it, but now, because they have all these chains, if you can do a cross chain transaction. So if I'm I'm connected on Ethereum and I'm buying across from Solana, they sort of cross. And you don't have to have the tokens on the right chain and all this sort of stuff. So they are behind the scenes becoming this sort of interesting eco sort of cross chain sort of system. From that point of view, I think that they are. I say that stuff is everyone will be doing that, but for those bigger sort of projects, I think it's quite nice to see that they're taking away some of the sort of tediousness of I have to bridge some tokens from Ethereum to Polygon to buy this thing and blah blah blah, and that's sort of going away now. So
good. We have Oncade, which have raised 4 million in seed funding. We got this week, so it's a little bit sort of what is Oncade? We would say sort of game distribution and marketing platform, which is enabled by or backed by like sort of stable coins. So it's not Web3 gaming distribution platform per se, but maybe you can just unfold a little bit what Oncade is.
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess the interesting thing here is, another sort of just one of the sort of biggest crypto trends really is use of stablecoins. So that's stablecoins are a crypto token that is pegged to a fiat currency. So obviously the most famous one is Tether, a dollar stablecoin, and USDC. They're the sort of the two big dollar-based stablecoins. But you could have a stablecoin attached to any any currency. So I think there's people doing some euro ones. I mean, you could do it to anything. But the whole point is basically these things are sort of they do go up and down a tiny amount, but basically with Tether and USDC, they are backed by real world assets. So in most cases, they're US treasuries, but they could be backed by anything. You have a combination of sort of currencies and treasuries and gold and whatever, however you want to do it. But basically, it means fundamentally that if someone with a stablecoin, if you have a stablecoin, you can go back to the issuer and get, if you have $1 million of USDC, you can go back to Circle, the company who issue it, and get $1 million worth of treasuries or whatever they're backing it with dollars. So that's the sort of the idea. And actually, Circle, the company behind USDC, are actually doing an IPO at the moment. So there's it's quite a big thing, and banks are looking into it, and some banks are looking to launch their own stable coins, and so it's just a big thing. And people, particularly for sort of global trade, it just speeds things up. So you can obviously you're moving currency, large amounts of currency around, very low transaction speeds, very low transaction fees, but the speed of the internet. So that's good from that point of view. So as you say, Oncade isn't. I mean, crypto games could use it, blockchain games could use it, but it's not designed for that. The guys behind it came from Razer, and actually one of them was the sort of creative director at Call of Duty for 12 years. So they've got decent experience. They raised 4 million from A16Z's crypto fund, which isn't a large amount of money. And what they're trying to do is sort of like what lots of people are trying to do. We've spoken a bit about sort of Wildcard building out this thousands sort of streaming platform because it wants sort of creators to be part of the revenue model and give them referral money back. And this is a sort of a version of that without the streaming. So the idea is particularly on app stores now, Apple and Google are sort of losing their power to run their own payment rails. So even within apps in app stores, but certainly not even on mobile, on PC, you can just get someone, if someone wants to buy $100 of your in-game sort of currency, they can click a button and go to your store. So the game developer owns the store, and so they're paying much less sort of fees So you're not paying Apple and Google's 30%. So that's been the real driver that's happening on mobile. So these guys are sort of playing into that. They're also then positioning, if you have an existing community who are maybe, they don't have to be big streamers. Well, if they're big streamers, it's better. It could just be sort of small people, and they're just saying, I'm playing this cool game, use my referral fee and get, 5% discount, because you have the ability to play around a bit more with how you're giving out sort of payment methods. So the idea is, you have your community. They really love your game. They would probably be doing videos or streams or whatever about it anyway. Now they're able to claim, to get some money back if people are going in. And obviously, in crypto, we talk to this all the time. A referral is a very sort of standard sort of thing, and works very well. Even if people are only getting, in-game, so the in-game assets that, from the game, they're not necessarily getting sort of direct money and stuff. So they're trying to sort of bring these sort of, I guess, there's three things they're trying to do there. They're the fact that, Apple and Google, that stuff's being sort of unbundled. The fact is you get these sort of communities, they don't have to be big, but they sort of can have a reach, and they'll probably have a stronger reach if they can get a bit of money back. Even, as we said many times before, different places in the world, if you get $5, that can be quite a lot of money for people. There's that, and obviously that only works if you're using crypto rails, because you can't really do it with PayPal or most people don't have bank accounts and blah, blah, blah. So it's a sort of I guess from a sort of investor point of view, it's a nice combination of sort of three things all happening at the same time that have a synergenic effect. Obviously the thing's just sort of very early stages, so it's whether anyone will sign up to use it. It's sort of that's the sort of difficult thing. But I think it does show again sort of the they're not promoting themselves as a Web3 distribution platform like, Ultra or like Thousands or whatever. They won't have their own token, I wouldn't imagine. Certainly no mention of that. They're not crypto dudes at all. They're just traditional sort of gaming tech people, but they're just using stablecoins because that's the best technology for them, and they couldn't do their business without that. So I think you'll see, particularly with stablecoins, that's clearly going to be, a massive impact on the general fintech sort of industry. So it's very interesting from that point of view.
No, exactly. Yeah. Next up, we've got YGG, which launched their casual browser game, LOLland, recently. It's a kind of degen game. And following that, they announced this week that they're sort of moving in towards publishing more and that sort of thing. So tell us more about that, please.
Yeah, so they've come up with this casual degen sort of genre, which I would say personally, I mean, I'm a little unsure about. Sort of casual obviously means there's not deep gameplay in there, but it appeals to a wide audience. Degen obviously means, from a crypto point of view, people who are excited to play high risk, high reward games. So typically we might say sort of it's sort of a combination of sort of gambling sort of mechanisms in games. So you're basically going. There's a sort of a casual audience who are really, in some ways, sort of very competitive, either with each other or with winning prizes. So yeah, I'm not sure personally how that works. I mean, obviously, it's maybe just the term's wrong, and maybe the games they're going to do are basically just going to be degen games. We've spoke about a few degen games before, and they tend to do. They can do some quite good numbers. So Cambria is one that's sort of had a lot of coverage recently. And it had like $1 million. Season 2, they had like $1 million sort of put into that game, and it was basically more like a PvP game. So the money gets put in there and gets distributed amongst the sort of winners. So in that sense, you might be putting a lot of money in and not getting anything out, but someone's putting some in and getting more out. So that's the sort of the degen model. I mean, the problem with it's hard to scale. So there are obviously degens in crypto who have a lot of money. But you sort of, it works better when you can get more people in there, but it doesn't appeal to most people to risk $50. The risk averseness sort of kicks in. So we'll see. I mean, LOLland, I've been playing it. I mean, there is a sort of there's sort of two strands to it. There's sort of the free version and the premium version. So the free version, you just sort of play the game. It's like a autoplay Monopoly sort of Go type game, and you collect these just in-game items, and you basically put them into a sort of prize pool, and once a day someone sort of wins a very small amount of their token. The other side is you spend a lot of money buying. It's exactly the same game, but you're just in the sort of in the money sort of part of it. And you can buy NFTs, but they're like the NFT is like $100 per NFT, and there's a sort of randomness on it. When you mint one out, you don't know sort of how rare it's going to be. I just think it's so casual. It's not very appealing from a game. There's nothing you do. You just hit auto play, and your thing moves around and collects, points or whatever, the in-game assets. And then you sort of spend money randomly getting sort of NFTs or whatever. So I don't get the feeling there's tons of people playing it. I think for degens want to feel like they're in a bit more control, even if they're not really in control. They want to feel like they're setting some sort of tactics, or they're choosing their gear, or there's something going on there. And the casual people just don't play degen games. I mean, Gabby from YGG, when talking about this, he said we've played, I don't know if they still invest very much anymore, but they did invest in sort of tons of games, and they played a lot of games, and they feel like they have a good idea about what blockchain games work or not. I mean, I've played a lot of games and looked at investing in lots of games, and I would say I don't really have necessarily a great feel about sort of what's going to work.
We're starting to see quite clearly which games don't work. Wouldn't you say that kind of?
Well, yes.
Yeah, no, you can see as the industry matures, we'll see what's not working, and maybe it is that we either have those really ambitious games, which we've talked about quite a lot over the past weeks, which Wildcard and Block Lords and these type of MapleStory and so on and so on, and then on the other hand, you have those kind of very degen focused, which aren't really aimed now, at least, not focused on kind of mass scaling. They are just wanting to appeal to that quite degen audience, because they know that works. They're not trying to go this sort of middle way which we've seen a lot of developers be quite disheartened with, realizing that all we have is we don't have proper gamers. We just have degens who want to extract as much as they can, and then they basically leave, and they don't have any problems to see games just completely sort of get done.
Yeah. No, I would say I think at the moment we definitely know what doesn't work. I think the problem at the moment is it's very hard to know what does work, and the ones you've mentioned, it's partly because they've raised more money and they're sort of more serious teams. But the ones that look like they're going to do well are the ones from experienced teams, established companies that cost tens of millions of dollars to make. It's not these sort of quirky little crypto, those are the ones that have just been sort of swept aside because they can't generate revenue, they can't raise money, they don't have a big enough audience, no one cares less about them. So that would be sort of my and then the degen stuff as well. People are a little bit like the next shiny thing. So there's about probably a few thousand degens out there. But they tend to cycle through games. They go, what's the best way in which I can make money this month? And they sort of go, and what's the best one this month? So even degens only have a certain amount of sort of money to spend. So it's I mean, I don't know. And the other thing I think with YGG, it's obviously they started off as a guild and then they want to reposition themselves somewhat to sort of sort of universal sort of salary thing. And it just seems it's not like we need any more blockchain games. So, I mean, their games are very cheap to do, but it just it's sort of interesting from that point of view that it seems to be a very I'll probably overuse the term pivot, but it's sort of for YGG to go into publishing when sort of what they were doing originally was providing audiences for other games. Seems like a little bit like, is their original sort of thesis working, that they feel like they have to go and do these games, because it's not the sort of games I would think their audience would go for, because their audience doesn't really have a ton of money. That was sort of the point, was they were bringing in people from the sort of emerging worlds who are time rich and resource poor. So it seems a little bit.
They have made that much money now. So.
Pardon?
I argue that they have made that much money now from crypto.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's move on. Let's talk about Disney Plus and the loyalty program, which was announced yesterday.
Yeah.
And I mean, more significantly, how this combines with Dapper Labs, Disney Pinnacle, NFT collectibles, because
Yeah,
that is a relevant part for us.
yeah, yeah. It's not gaming, but just worth sort of briefly touching on, I suppose. That Dapper Labs, obviously well known for its collectible NFT stuff, NBA Top Shot back in the day, and various other things that it's sort of attempted to do around collectibles, and its own flow chain. So it's been running actually this Disney Pinnacle thing for a year. I think it's sort of been in early access, so I think I'm not quite sure how easy it's been for people to be playing it, but some people have been sort of not playing it. Some people have been doing it, and basically did this deal with Disney, and they are selling these little digital, they look like sort of badges, little metal pin badges, and you basically open up either gacha boxes for rarer ones or just sort of buy the sort of the ones you want, and there's sort of collections. So making it up slightly, but there's obviously the Star Wars collection or a Mickey Mouse collection, or so they have all these collections, and there's a few sort of apps that do that. Animoca had one. I think it's still going, but there's people have done this sort of collectible type NFT stuff, and I guess so what's interesting here is Dapper Labs have been running this thing with Disney for a while, but now Disney Plus, the streaming platform, has launched its own loyalty program, which is nothing to do with blockchain. There's a whole bunch of the usual sort of stuff you would expect to get, with loyalty programs, like you win tickets to watch shows being filmed, or tickets to Disney events and stuff like that. But part of it is their Disney Plus subscribers sort of get special access to this Disney Pinnacle thing that's been going for a while. So you get there's $10 of free sort of credit, so you can just go and buy these sort of pins if you want to, and you get one free pin a month. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. It's random, I suppose, but it's just a sort of a boost that obviously it's a sort of bringing a bigger audience into this thing that Dapper Labs has been running. And obviously, if Disney didn't think they'd been running it well, they wouldn't be exposing their however many hundreds of millions of Disney Plus sort of subscribers to this. So it's like a tick for Dapper Labs. More people coming in. The whole thing, I've been looking at it, is actually quite complicated. All the different sort of rarities and the different, like all these sort of collectibles. You want there to be as much variation as possible. So there's all these different. You get the sort of same character, but you get a shiny one or a one with different coloured frames. And I didn't really say fully. I looked at the article, my eyes sort of glazed over.
It matters to the kids.
No. But so it's very sort of graduated.
They would ask, "Have you got a shiny? Have you got?"
Yeah, no. You're exactly right. If you're into collectibles, this is that's the sort of level of detail you want. One interesting thing is that they do have trading, obviously peer-to-peer trading, but it's not always on. So it's only some specific sort of weekends they go, right, this is the trading event, and then you can trade between, me and you could trade ones. We want to complete collections or however it goes. So that's interesting that they're sort of, it's not an always on thing. They're sort of limiting it. And I think that's partly because obviously Disney attracts a certain crowd, and obviously it helps you with security and bots and that sort of stuff. And obviously Dapper Labs has massive, experience of that, running NBA Top Shot. That was those things got really expensive, really fast, and you're dealing with all manner of sort of issues, and they got sued and blah, blah, blah. So it's sort of interesting that it's the Disney market, and you're buying Star Wars and Mickey Mouse, and effectively NFTs, and allowing people to trade them. So it's again, I guess it's not a massive headline in and of itself, but it's just some crypto primitives becoming part of a sort of mass market thing, and they don't really call them NFTs. They call them digital pins. I think Disney doesn't even mention sort of the Flow blockchain or anything like that. So it's just another. Everyone's like, say when a blockchain game is going to be bigger than Call of Duty, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But slowly, Bitcoin's still at all-time high. People are sticking in their pensions. Stable coins are sort of being just normal companies are doing stable coins, and slowly sort of crypto, like lots of technologies, maybe AI as well. Yeah, it's not a big, massive sort of event. It's sort of just slowly people trust it and get a feel for what advantages it gives, and how to deal with some of the problems that you get from it. And it's slowly over, what are we how many years since the Bitcoin white paper? Slowly it creeps in to sort of what most people would consider sort of normie society. And I guess this is just an example that,
it's good. It's good that it's going slowly, because it has a lot of flaws that need addressing, and sort of a lot of security issues and stuff that you would want dealt with before it does go mainstream. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk a bit about the data following MapleStory Universe's launch of MapleStory N on its own Henesys blockchain on Avalanche, and sort of how that's performed. This is the second 2 weeks in now, isn't it, following the launch? So
yeah, keeping my BDI on this quite a lot at the moment. As you say, the Henesys blockchain for currently running on MapleStory N and the MSU marketplace for its NFTs. So just looking at it from the Block Explorer stuff, so nothing clever. But it's up to hit a peak of over 50,000 daily active unique wallets. So that's and that's. There'll be more people playing the game, so you have to get your in-game character to level 60 in order to mint it, and that's when you can start selling the characters on the blockchain. There's other items you can start selling. Let me quickly look.
Is that pre-bot reduction?
Or so they've said they put out an announcement saying that they banned 6,000 accounts. Yesterday or 2 days ago now, I suppose. So it's come down a little bit. So yeah, I mean, obviously with anything like that, certainly anything with real money, they're looking at sort of botting and people, trying to, I guess, speed run their character to level 60 and selling them off. In terms of the marketplace, they've had in total over 600,000 active wallets. So that's quite what they mean by activity there. I don't know, but 600,000 active wallets, over 6 million item sales. Volume is now about 5 million. So it's going up, that's in dollars. So there's obviously it's always going up more, but the sort of the NXPC token is still coming down a little bit. So the US dollar value is going down while the actual sort of in-game currency volume is going up. So there's two things going on there. Floor price of a character is about sort of $2, just under $2. So I mean the numbers look pretty good, and sort of also I will be writing something about this next week. Is looking now at that Henesys blockchain as a game, and just say MapleStory N is still geo locked, so no one supposedly in the US, UK, South Korea, Japan, China are playing that, so other countries as well. So it's a sort of limited sort of a audience, unless obviously people using VPNs. But it's about 50,000 daily active unique wallets, and we can start now comparing that with maybe some other sort of blockchain gaming blockchains or games. I mean, obviously a bit of an apples to oranges comparison to some degree, but Pixels is about is about on the same level at the moment. So that's the sort of social RPG, farming RPG running on Ronin, which has for a long time been the biggest blockchain game. It's come down a lot now, but that's running about sort of between 40 and 60,000 daily active unique wallets. And also the immutable chain as well. So not 100% on my data around the immutable ZK EVM chain, but looking at their Block Explorer, so that should be okay. They're on about 50,000 daily active unique wallets as well. And obviously, immutable is an ecosystem, so it's multiple games. I mean, they keep banging on about how many hundreds of games they are, but there's only a few games with half decent sort of activity on that, and obviously they have their own reward system now. They've got quite a complex reward system that we'll look into as well. So you start seeing that MapleStory N is sort of it's not the most popular blockchain game yet. It's actually still on about 100,000 daily actives, and Alien Worlds is on about the same. So, but it's definitely sort of up there with what would be seen as other sort of credible blockchains or credible blockchain games. Obviously, a bit early in its lifetime, so everyone's a bit excited, and you generally make the most money in the early stages when people are not quite sure the price, and high level items are worth more because there's fewer of them. So, Nexon has actually said someone has already made $40,000 worth by playing the game. Let's hope that's not an account that's been banned since. But obviously people are just sort of sitting down there and cramming through speed running these characters and getting the good deal. And then the most expensive sale has been $16,000. That's what it was at the time, at least. So yeah, I mean these things can sort of obviously be sort of volatile, but it seems at the moment for the last 2 weeks pretty steady. pretty steady growth. So
40,000 is the magic number this week, because Fort in
yes,
Immutables Raven Quest sold for $40,000 as well this week. I think Robbie Ferguson
got very excited about that. Yes, yes.
Good. Well, on that note, let's finish off, and we'll come back next week with some of that MapleStory universe data. More of that.
Yep.
It seems to peak over the weekends, doesn't it? So after the weekends, always seen a little bit of a boost in traffic.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Right.